to gazetted police stations, and then subsequently arraign them before court. Issues of the police mobile conspiring with the service providers, we don't do that completely. If at all we are interested to get information from the service providers, we do so through the lawful means. We go to court, swear affidavits, and serve that court order to the service provider. It's only after we get the court order, it's now when we request the service provider to go and give us.
We commit to strengthening prevention mechanisms against heinous acts such as this and build the necessary confidence that we are all safe in our familiar environments. As a state department, we remain firm in our commitment to mitigating gender-based violence and ensuring swift justice to victims of gender-based violence, while collaboratively addressing cultural and societal biases that perpetuate femicide and violence in all its forms.
Impeached Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has expressed confidence in the judiciary's ability to deliver justice as he appeals his removal from office. Speaking while in Limuru, Kiambu County, during the burial of one Geoffrey Murugami, Gachagua urged Kenyans to maintain peace regardless of the case's outcome. He further urged his supporters, particularly in the Mount Kenya region, to foster unity among all communities, emphasizing that Kenya is greater than any individual. Gachagua will know his fate on Thursday afternoon as the High Court is set to deliver a ruling on the conservatory orders granted.
We have faith that our judiciary will protect and uphold the Constitution of Kenya and will exercise fairness and give justice to Rigathi Gachagua and his supporters. That is our prayer. But I want to ask for peace, more so to my people of the Mount Kenya region. Please remain peaceful. Love one another. Stay well with all other regions and communities. They have not wronged us. They are our friends. Kenya is bigger than all of us. And we don't have another Kenya. We only have one Kenya. And I want to say, irrespective of what will happen, the outcome of the court process, let our people remain peaceful and build our country. A time will come for us to speak.
Azimio coalition leaders led by Kalonzo Musyoka have accused government of driving Kenya under police state following the recent abductions and extrajudicial killings. The opposition leaders have pointed a blame finger on the Kenya Kwanza administration for sponsoring the disappearances of activists and Gen Zs who are vocal anti-Ruto supporters. Kalonzo was flanked by other leaders including Eugene Wamalwa and Jeremiah Kioni, who have had pressed the government and security agencies to take responsibility of these worrying trends.
Leo hii hatuongei tu ya majenzi, hata sisi kama viongozi wa upinzani tunajua ya kwamba simu zetu have been tracked. Tunajua ya kwamba vile Tunduliso yaliwekwa hatarini kule Tanzania, mashirika yanayotumika hapa na teknolojia yao wataajibika kwa Wakenya. If any harm comes to Kalonzo Musyoka ama Kioni ama Wamalwa ama viongozi wengine, tunajua ya kwamba mko mnatumika na mnasaidia kupeana hiyo teknolojia na kupeana palipo wale ambao wanatafutwa na polisi.
Regardless of media outlet, you have been brutally attacked by security agents. We understand the equipments have been illegally confiscated. We know that a fair number of you have been taken to court and gag orders issued stopping you from publishing on certain topics, organizations, or personalities. Nonetheless, you steadfastly adhere to the Kenyan Code of Conduct for the practice of journalism. By doing so, you have demonstrated that the fundamental yearning for democratic liberties including access to honest and fact-based news, will never be destroyed, even by the most brutal dictatorship.
A family in Maweni, Kilifi County is in distress following the death of a 17-year-old kin who was allegedly shot by police while attending a wedding. The young man allegedly died on the spot on Saturday, October 26th, from a bullet wound in his chest. According to area residents, the victim was shot at a wedding venue at night by police who raided the event. The victim's parent also gave an account of what happened, alleging that their son was in the company of friends at the time of the incident. A post-mortem further revealed that the boy was shot from the back, with the bullet puncturing his lung and coming out at the front. As the family grapples with the loss of their loved one, area residents are adamant the teenager was a casualty of police brutality.
Nashikika sana kwa mtoto wangu, alikuwa ameenda harusini na wenzake. Kufika pale harusini, sasa vile kucheza na wenzake, mbele kutoka askari. Sasa vile wanakimbia wale vijana, akapigwa risasi, akaanguka na kafarika hapo. Na sasa leo tungoja kwa postmortem, wameangalia, amepigwa risasi ya nyuma, ikatoka na mbele, imevunja mfupa hapa ni juu na mapafu na moyo, na akafariki hapo kwa hapo. Kwa hivyo naomba serikali, wale askari tutenda kitendo hiko, wachukuliwe hatua.
Siku ya leo tuko hapa na familia ya Jimmy Masimor, na kijana huyu wa miaka 17 ilikuwa amepigwa risasi, na kulingana na yale ambayo tuliyapata ni kuwa kijana huyu alikuwa yuko harusini, na katika ile hali ya kuwa harusini kukatokea polisi, ambayo polisi wao sielewi kwa nini waliamua kutumia risasi na kumpiga huyu kijana. Na leo ilikuwa ni siku ya postmortem, tumeweza kufanya postmortem na kweli tumethibitisha ya kwamba kijana huyu alikufa kupitia risasi ambayo alipigwa sehemu ya nyuma, ambayo ikatoka na mbele. Kwa sababu
kwa kweli niliposikia hii simu ya hiki kifo kilinishangaza sana. Huyo mtoto alikuwa ametoka hata kwangu, ilikuwa Jumanne, alikuwa yuko kwangu, na ilipofika siku ya hiyo Jumamosi akasema kuna mahali kuna harusi. Nikamwambia wapi? Akasema Maweni, lakini tunaenda na wenzangu. Mimi nikamwambia ni sawa. Sasa alipoenda huko hata ilikuwa ni saa 4, ilikuwa haijafika usiku, walikuwa kwa ile harusi. Sasa mimi kinachonishangaza ni kuwa ile hatua walioichukua hawa polisi. Maanake hawa watoto hawa wanasema kwa walikuwa wanakimbia, lakini mimi sidhani kwa wanakimbia. Maanake hawa askari hawakwenda kuweka ile usalama pale. Hawa walikuwa wameenda kama vita. Maanake kama wangelikuwa wameenda kwa kuweka usalama, wangeenda wakapiga za juu, wakasema hapa hatutaki fujo. Lakini hawa wameenda na kulenga tayari mtu. Wameenda na kulenga.
Nairobi County Assembly's Departmental Planning Committee has summoned National Bank of Kenya officials to shed light on how a private developer used a title deed for public land in Nairobi to secure 1.9 billion shillings loan. The 12-member committee, led by Minority Leader Anthony Kiragu, has also written to the bank to freeze any further transactions on the title deed until further investigations are conducted on the Jivanji Affordable Housing Project, which is still in limbo as the buyers are yet to occupy the houses 5 years on. The MCAs have further bashed county executive for failing to heed to the county summons to shed light on how the developer used the title to secure the loan without the approval of the county.
We've had some very shocking situation in the county assembly, whereby the agenda of the planning committee meeting has been changed. We were supposed to meet the minister and officers of the county to explain to us how a title deed left the county, ended up in National Bank, and ended up being charged for 1.9 billion. As far as we are concerned, as a long-serving member of this county assembly and as chairman of planning, I know very well that in the urban renewal, a developer was supposed to come with money, the county was supposed to come with land, and the developer was supposed to develop units and sell to the public. What is shocking is that the G project, whereby almost 1,400 houses were supposed to be built, they were sold out within a month. On top of that, 5 years later, there is no progress in that project. Secondly, they have gone further and used the title deed against the policy, the urban renewal policy, and against the law, because our courts passed a law that say that you cannot charge county property for money. They have gone further to National Bank and charged the property for 1.9 billion. Grapevine information tells us that National Bank is colluding with them to give them money. We want to send a very clear, I want to send a very clear signal to National Bank that please do not be a conduit of corruption. If you give any money against county land, it will be null and void. Do not risk depositors' money, do not risk government money on charging county property. We are going to write to the bank immediately today and tell them to seize any transaction on this particular property. Secondly, we have summoned the bank officials to come with the documents and to come and explain to the committee and the people of Nairobi the procedure they use to charge public land, which is against.
To matters Education Cabinet Secretary Migos Ogamba has told the Senate that the Ministry of Education is ready for the grade 9 learners starting January next year. The Cabinet Secretary says the ministry has already undertaken an infrastructural needs assessment in schools and all learners will find the required materials for the grade 9 learning.
The question of how prepared we are, an assessment was done for this 1 million grade 9 students, and we came up, the ministry came up with a requirement of 16,000 classrooms. The World Bank gave 12 billion shillings, and the ministry is doing 11,000 classrooms. Out of the 11,000 classrooms that are going to be, they have been done in 2 tranches. Phase 1 was 3,500 and it's been completed. We are now in phase 2 dealing with 7,500. There is also a co-funding with the CDF, where the ministry gave, I think, 3.4 billion and CDF 3.4 billion, making 7 billion. That is also going to do 6,000 classrooms, making a total of the 16,000 that are required. So we're in the process. We have done 3,500, 7,500, and the other 6,000 are in various stages of completion. We've calculated that we are going to have all these classrooms completed by the 15th of December.
The lecturers' strike has entered its second day as dons across all 35 public universities and 2 constituent colleges continued with their strike to push the government to honor their 2021-2025 collective bargaining agreement as per the Interministerial Committee agreement signed on September 26th of this year. The Employment and Labour Court declared the lecturers' strike that began on Tuesday illegal, directing the government and lecturers to expedite negotiations pending a full hearing. Lady Justice Agnes Nzei ordered the university's academic staff union not to incite or call upon union members to participate in the unprotected strike on orders or in orders issued on Tuesday.
For the union makes us strong.
What we needed and what was signed and what was agreed is 9.6 billion. Any other figure being bandied around, I want you to understand that is the government's side trying to armstrong an agreed and already signed against return to work formula.
Wanafunzi wakae manyumbani, wakae kwa halls zao mahali wanaishi, waende malibrary wajisomeshe wenyewe, wakiwa pia wanatarajia serikali iweze kutekeleza. Sio sisi, lakini serikali iko na utepetevu fulani.
Sisi tunawajali wanafunzi wetu na tunataka kufanya kazi, lakini pia tunajua gharama ya maisha imepanda sana. Na mambo haya ya nyongeza ya mshahara, tulianza maongezi haya ni mambo ambayo tulianza mwaka 2020 hadi wa sasa.
All right, and so much more on that, particularly with the lecturers' strike. There will be a conversation right here on Morning Live tomorrow with Fred Njuri. He will be having John Mali, WASU's National Treasurer, who's also a lecturer of Pwani University, so that he can give more insights on just which is the way forward, even as this is what, the second strike in just 2 months, and what is the way forward looking like. So that is tomorrow. However, right about now, let's talk about the presidential term limits furore, or what we call an uproar over the term limits extension as proposed by Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei in the Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024. And this is a conversation that continues to make headlines across the country, even as Kenyans continue to give their views on what they think about this particular bill. Now, what has captured the attention of many is just on two key things, and that is on the extension of term limits for the president and other elected leaders. This includes governors, members of parliament, talk about MCAs. But there's more to this particular Constitution Amendment Bill of 2024 that will dictate whether or not it heads to a referendum. And I'll also be talking about the referendum in just a bit. So, the Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024, as I've said, is being sponsored by Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei. Proposes to amend Article 136, which speaks of the election of a president, to increase the term of the office of president from 5 to 7 years, so 2 more years on top, right? It also seeks to amend Articles 101, 177, and 180 to extend the terms of governors, senators, members of the National Assembly, and members of the County Assembly. Now, Article 101 speaks of election of an MP. Article 177 speaks of the office of MCA, while Article 180 of the Constitution speaks of election of a governor and a deputy governor. Now, aside from that, we'll move on to the next, where it just not only speaks about, these particular amendments to the offices of the president to increase the term limits from 5 to 7, or that of members of parliament, but it also seeks to amend Articles 151 of the Constitution by inserting Article 151A, which creates the office of Prime Minister appointed by President from amongst members of Parliament. And that's an interesting one, because right now what we have is Prime Cabinet Secretary, and this was put in place after an executive order by the President himself. So it seeks to have or to create an office of Prime Minister appointed by the President from amongst members of Parliament. Essentially, in addition to that as well, whoever becomes the leader of majority or the majority party in the National Assembly gets to be the Prime Minister. So you're introducing a new office from this particular amendment bill, and so this is also one of the proposals. It also proposes to amend Article 181 to provide procedure of removal of governor and deputy governor. At the moment, the Constitution only speaks of the removal of a governor, does not speak about the removal of deputy governor. So this is also included in this Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024. Let's also look at what else is spoken about in this particular bill. And the bill as well speaks about amending Article 241 to require approval of both houses of parliament before deployment of KDF in any part of Kenya. Amending Article 241 to require approval of both houses of parliament before deployment of KDF in any part of Kenya. At the moment, what we have right now under the 2010 Constitution just requires the approval of the National Assembly and not the Senate. Cherargei wants now both houses, that is the Senate and the National Assembly, that is now Parliament, to approve the deployment of KDF in any part of Kenya. Now, amending Article 58 to provide involvement of Senate and national approval in an extension of state of emergency. Now, if you remember with the Gen Z protests, which we saw earlier this year, after the parliament was invaded, and later on in the evening, the then Defense Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale gazetted the deployment of KDF, that is the military, to the streets, which was a first after a very long time, as well as declaring, not declaring any state of emergency, but if there was to be any state of emergency, then it will require both houses of parliament. Now, let's take a look at why this particular bill touches on key tenets of the Constitution, which require that, if at all there's a bill that seeks to touch on these key things, then there has to be a referendum. And that includes one, the supremacy of the Constitution, that is the 2010 Constitution. If any member of Parliament or a senator brings up a bill that requires or that touches on the supremacy of the Constitution, then there has to be a referendum. If there's a bill that touches on the territory of Kenya, then there has to be a referendum. If there's a bill that touches on the sovereignty of the people, then there has to be a referendum. If there's a bill that touches on the national values and principles of governance, then there has to be a referendum. If there's a bill that touches on the Bill of Rights, and this is where we're talking about your right as a citizen of Kenya, as a Kenyan citizen, any right that is listed in the Constitution of Kenya, then there has to be a referendum. Now let's also look at what else that is explicitly required with the Constitution, that if touched will have to go to a referendum. Includes term of office of the president. And this has been touched in this particular Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024, because Judiciary seeks to have that extension from 5 to 7 years. So the term of office has been touched. So if at all this bill passes through the floor of the Senate, then passes with a majority, before the president can assent to it, it has to go through a referendum because it touches on the terms of president. Now, the independence of the judiciary in independent offices, if it's touched upon, a referendum. Functions of parliament, if at all there's something shifts on what exactly parliament is supposed to do, then, the Constitution requires that any amendment relating to it goes through a referendum, as well as objects, principles, and structure of devolved government. Now, in addition to that, let's take a look at what the Constitution now says. We'll refer to this popular book, which we call the 2010 Constitution. Article 255(2) mandates that such amendments require at least 20% voter participation in half of all counties, a simple majority support in the referendum. So the big question, what is a referendum, right? A referendum is a popular vote where persons in, decision-making organs bring a particular decision that you are supposed to make as a Kenyan, and you have to vote on it. Have we had a referendum in Kenya? Yes. 2005, yes or no referendum, the popular Chungwa Ndizi, if you remember correctly. Well, that was a referendum. What did it birth? The 2010 Constitution. And so we've had a referendum in the country before. And if at all this particular bill, Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024, goes through the processes and gets the numbers that are required, then before the president can ascend it into law, as he would with any other bill, he will have to first ask for your view, and that is through a ballot known as a referendum. You'll have to go and vote either, yes, I support this Constitution Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024, or no, I do not support it at all. So the Constitution requires that at least 20% voter participation in half of all counties. That is the least requirement, as well as, the simple majority support in the referendum. If you've got 5 million people, for instance, who go and vote on this particular referendum, and 3 million vote yes, 2 million vote no, well, it passes through. But if you have 3 million voting no, 2 million voting yes, it does not go through to any other level. One final Constitution article, or article of the Constitution that dictates on what or when there has to be a referendum, and that is Article 256. 5A of the Constitution, that says a president shall, before assenting to the bill, request the IEBC to conduct within 90 days a national referendum for approval of the bill. So before you can even talk about it coming to you, the president has to first send this or request this to the IEBC, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. This is also where there's a big sticky point. Do we have an IEBC? Do we have commissioners in place who can actually be in charge of overseeing? Because this is essentially more or less at the same capacity level of conducting an election, because it requires, ballot boxes across all the 290 constituencies in Kenya, across all the 47 counties in Kenya. So the president, before assenting to this particular bill, if it passes through Parliament, will have to request the IBC to conduct a referendum within 90 days. If you do the math, that's roughly about 3 months. So do we have the capacity, the resources to actually conduct a referendum at this point? And we do not even have IBC commissioners in place. So first, the IBC will have to be reconstituted and then requested to conduct this particular referendum. And then the vote comes in, majority. It does not, if majority support, well, it passes. If majority do not support, then it does not pass. And that is now what we call a national referendum for approval of the bill. Now, the reason it is important for you to understand this process is because, yes, there has been an uproar over this particular bill, but the question is, will it see the light of day to the end, putting in mind the structures the Constitution has put in place over this kind of bill, which touches key tenets of the Constitution, as I've explained? Well, that is something we'll be looking forward to see, even as leaders have voiced their opinion over how they feel about this particular bill, right? Now, let's move on to something else. President William Ruto on Wednesday hosted Hindu faithfuls at State House for the Diwali celebrations. And Ruto emphasized the significance of this intermingling of faiths, stating it was remarkable to witness Hindus in church setting. He encouraged the Asian community to take pride in their place in Kenya. Ruto also assured that the Hindus will get a national holiday to celebrate their ceremonies come next year. And the request for the same had been made by the Indian leadership in the country.
Today, as we light our lamps, we affirm our shared wish for peace, prosperity, and unity in our beloved Kenya. Let our prayers and intentions turn towards a vision for Kenya where harmony prevails, where every citizen prospers, and where the brightness of peace shines unchallenged. Let this light be a beacon for the entire nation, illuminating a future of abundance and unity.
Since those early days, the Hindu community has grown and flourished, contributing extensively to the Kenyan business, social, and political landscapes. In the business community, Your Excellency, Hindu leaders have been pioneering entrepreneurs and have made remarkable contributions to Kenya's economic progress.
For the first time, we are celebrating this occasion of Diwali here in State House as a recognition of all of us belonging to this great nation called Kenya. And as I have said, these values transcend any single culture, the values that we all believe in. They resonate with all of us and drive our collective efforts to build a prosperous, united, and inclusive nation. I am humbled to be associated with a festival that has a history spanning 5,000 years. I feel both privileged and proud that our country is enriched with such a wealth of cultures, traditions, and religion.
Now, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi says Kenya is undertaking a comprehensive review of the country's foreign policy in a move to reshape Kenya's role on the global stage. Mudavadi has said that the initiative includes the preparation of a sessional paper for Parliament aimed at clarifying Kenya's foreign policy and addressing the ministry's budgetary needs. Speaking when he visited the Kenyan embassy in Bujumbura, Burundi, Mudavadi also, the Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora, stressed the importance of engaging Parliament, which allocates resources. He noted that misconceptions about Kenya's foreign policy exist, and the sessional paper would correct them and help advocate for a budget that reflects the ministry's requirements, including the welfare of Kenyans working in diplomatic missions. The government will not allow cultural events to run near educational institutions, especially at a time when Form 4 candidates are continuing with their national examinations. Cheptai's Deputy Commissioner for Mount Elgon constituency in Bungoma County, Philip Sigei, says the security forces will not allow any events, especially circumcision ceremonies, near schools, while also asking parents to be careful or to take care of their children during this long holiday season. In addition, Sigei has assured the students and teachers managing the Form 4 KCSE national examinations of sufficient security, indicating that strong strategies have been put in place to ensure that the entire activity is properly run.
Tumeweka mikakati hali ya security, tumepanga personnel ambayo wanafanya ile kutekeleza jukumu lao ya kuescort mitihani na kwenda kukaa kwa hiyo senda hadi mitihani kamilike. Kumekuwa na rumors hapo juzi ya kuwa ati askari mmoja ndiye anapewa kusindikiza mitihani, lakini sio hivyo. Najua sheria ya standing orders ya serikali lazima bunduki moja ichunge nyingine, so tumekuwa na askari wawili kwa kila escort kila mitihani na kila station, na so far so kutatusikia anything. Askari yetu wanafanya kazi vizuri na wale center managers wanaendesha mitihani bila tatizo. So far hatujakuwa na any reported cases na tunatarajia kuendelea namna hiyo. Mitihani ya Form 4 ikianza kesho, tumeweka security ya kutosha na wataescort wafanye vile wanavyotakikana wafanye, na hatutarajii mabaya. Ile kitu tunataka tu ni kutakia watoto, wanafunzi wote ambao wanafanya mitihani wawe na best luck.
All right, at that point, I'd love to wrap up this bulletin tonight. Thank you very much for your wonderful company. I hope that you're up to speed with what is making headlines across the country. Quite an important day tomorrow for the country, because the High Court will be determining whether or not Gachagua stays out of office or Kindiki comes in, or vice versa. And so we'll be looking forward to that ruling, which will be happening on Thursday, that is tomorrow in the afternoon at the High Court. So allow me to wrap it up at that point. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Good night.